Welcome to the network, the educational podcast designed to help our community navigate the four areas of life that I like to call the funky four corners. I've had the opportunity to interview some of my favorite people with one goal in mind: to help the spiritual, physical, mental, and financial health of our people as we navigate this thing called life. Subscribe to the network. You never know, you might need it.
I am so pleased to be back with you. Listen, I usually say this at the end, but today I'm going to say it at the beginning. Make love the culture. In everything that you do, make sure that it is rooted in love. Listen, y'all, in the words of the great American poet Jason Terrence Phillip, better known as Jada Kiss, I'm still here because it's real here. Listen, this is the network, the free, the top 5 dead or alive free educational podcast designed to help our community navigate the 4 areas of life that I like to call the funky 4 corners. I've had the opportunity to interview some of my favorite people. And of course, today I have one of my favorites back in the lab with us. Today's guest is the world-renowned African-American and Diaspora Studies Department Chair at the Xavier University of Louisiana, Dr. Sharlene Sinegal-Decuir. We are here to bring you the funkiest 15 minutes in Black history. We're going to give it to you in bite-sized pieces. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you and present to others Dr. Sharlene Sinegal-Decuir.
Hi, everyone. So happy to be back this month to talk about a few important things that has been plaguing the African-American community for many, many, many years, right? So one of the first things we're going to talk about is criminal justice, employment, education, healthcare, and our last one, of course, voting. Right. So these are huge issues within the African-American community. So jumping right on into criminal justice, when we're thinking about criminal justice, right, we're actually talking about both race and justice. We're talking about ways in which discrimination, policing, prosecutions, incarceration practices, all those things impact the African-American community. And our criminal justice system is shaped by biased policing, unfair judicial proceedings, anti-Blackness, racial disparities. There are amazing facts that you could actually find on the NAACP.org that talks about how African-American people are 5 times likely more incarcerated than other races, right? We have, there's a 65% rate of African-American people being harassed by police than other races, and so many other things. The cost of this injustice, justice is very high for the African-American community because it leads into several other atmospheres of our lives, right? If you are a person who is charged with a felon, and it could be for a minor infraction that turns into something larger, right? By the time you're booked into the police station and whatnot, it is turned into 5 different charges. So now that is going to impact your voting rights. It's going to impact your employment opportunities. It's going to impact how you are able to support yourself and your family going forward. And it can impact generations to come. So that is a huge issue within the African-American community. We also know that, of course, going back in history, the slave patrols, right? That was the first form of policing. And that policing has now extended to what we have currently, a system that has failed the African-American community and criminalized us for so long. So that's a huge problem. And that's something that we need to definitely think about going forward.
And when you say cost, you're talking about monetary value and personal value.
Yes. Well, when I say cost, I'm talking about so many different levels of cost, right? Cost to the African-American community, not, monetary value, of course, but when you're talking about social economics, it's larger than just a monetary, you're making X amount of money. It's about your access to certain things, within the American system. Your access to healthcare, your access to education, your access to employment opportunities, those types of things. So that cost of being put in the system can now lead to other disadvantages in your life.
Got it. Good stuff, Doc. All right. What's issue number 2?
Issue number 2, employment. Right. I was baffled when I was listening to the RNC and Donald Trump said something about Black jobs, how immigrants are taking over Black jobs. And I said to myself, sir, what do you consider to be a Black job? Because as Michelle Obama said, does he not know he's actually running for a Black job? Okay, we
It is
Black president, right? And so it makes you think this is not the 50s, the 40s and the 50s, where African American people were boxed into certain jobs, certain service industry jobs, and different things like that. Now, nothing is wrong with that at all. But what I'm trying to say is that we have achieved so much through education, and we have now the opportunity to be CEOs, to be presidents of the United States. So to marginalize us into that one box is totally incorrect. But we do have issues with unemployment, right? There is issues within the African American community and African American people getting employed. There's still a 2-to-1 ratio where we are less employed than others, right? There's also, I believe in 2020, it was the Wells Fargo CEO, when he said there was not enough Black talent out there. And we sit back and we say, for people like me, there are over 100 plus HBCUs that graduate thousands and thousands of African American professionals every year. And you mean to tell me there isn't a talent pool? It's because you're not looking for us, right? And some jobs it's about who you know and who can make a call for you in order to get that chance. And a lot of time those chances are not reserved for us. They're reserved for others, right? And then even in some cases, if we do, make our way to become a CEO or a professor or a doctor or a lawyer or any of those things, we might be first gen. And so it's harder to navigate in some ways those professions than other people, right? I know, like me, being a professor, no one taught me how to be a professor. I did not know a whole lot of Black women who were doing what I was doing. I didn't know a whole lot of Black people who were doing what I was doing. And so navigating those, avenues and those jobs without having a support that other people have, it does handicap us, right? So employment is huge.
That's an excellent point. Yeah, I think you just made an excellent point. Being a Black woman who is a professor, right? So because the numbers aren't there as they are for other groups, other ethnic groups, other racial groups, the opportunity to have a coach, the opportunity to have a mentor, the opportunity to have a sponsor who looks like you and can relate to your experiences is often not there. That's an excellent point that you brought up, Dr. Decuir. Yeah. That is excellent. Okay, yes, what's number 3?
Oh, and just one more thing to harp on with employment. And it is that African American women, Black women, are paid significantly lower than any other race, male or female, for working the same job and more than likely doing more in that job. And this is something that I brought up to the Board of Trustees at Xavier University when I was asking for raises for everyone. And I came with all of my figures, and it was absolutely ridiculous, right? And it still goes, it happens. It still goes on. Like, we are not paid equal salaries at all. So that is another issue. So that's not just, it's a racial issue. It's a sex issue. It's all of those things. For, why are Black women paid the least? That's another thing to think about. And hopefully, if we elect Kamala as president of the United States, maybe that'll change and we'll get equal pay across the board, or at least pay based on your merit.
Yes. And I am so happy that, one, just having your presence on this podcast is phenomenal. I love the fact that you are going in there and kicking down doors. Well, where you're kicking down the door.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing. You're not going in, you're kicking the door in, and you're saying, hey, listen, so you're building bridges. There's a young lady today, she's probably in pre-K, and because of the work that you're doing and other women like yourself, she is going to be paid her worth. She is going to be paid what her merit says that she is worth. So, Dr. Decuir, we have known each other forever. But I am continually grateful and thankful and impressed by the work that you do. The floor is yours again.
All right. Our next one is healthcare. Healthcare is a huge issue within the African American community. And, it stems from a lot of medical mistrust that we have in the African American community, right? Yes. We have the Tuskegee study. Yes. With, Black men being experimented on for over 30 years. We had Dr. Marion Sims, who is the grandfather of modern gynecology, right? Who experimented on African American enslaved people without anesthesia. We had Henrietta Lacks and the HeLa cells that are still currently being used to diagnose all kinds of diseases. That was done without her consent. Her cells were taken without her consent. So we have all of these issues within the healthcare profession that causes us to have medical mistrust. And it's even to the point where it doesn't matter if you're a female or male. It doesn't matter if you have insurance or if you do not have insurance, right? It doesn't matter if you're a celebrity or a normal person like you and I, because it even happened to Serena Williams. She almost died when she gave birth to her daughter, Olympia, right? She was experiencing all these complications and the doctors wouldn't listen to her. So we have an issue within healthcare. Black people are over prescribed medication. We're under prescribed medication. We are not given the treatment that is needed for us to survive certain illnesses, and which they just don't listen to us, right? Big issues. And so, of course, with HBCUs and Xavier has just announced that they're creating a medical school. Thank God for those places and those spaces that African American people can be educated and go back into our communities and actually listen to the people in our communities and what's ailing them, right? Even my sister being in the medical profession, a doctor, working in the African American communities, she saw over medications. She saw that some doctors did not care if they prescribed this medicine and if it countered with this medicine and it made people feel bad. It was all about, kickbacks, pharmaceutical kickbacks, and so on. And so we need more Black doctors in Black communities listening and diagnosing us correctly. So healthcare is a huge issue. And then we also know that for some of us that do not have insurance, we go to the doctors and maybe we're not going to get the best doctor that we need. We may get a doctor or somebody who's experimenting on us or still trying to figure it out. They finished medical school, but they didn't finish anywhere near the top of their class, right? And so now they're working at these hospitals and they're misdiagnosing us. And then that again is causing issues for the Black family, because if you have someone who may be the breadwinner of your family and they die, now what happens to the rest? You might have a grandparent who's taking care of their grandkids and that grandparent is now gone. What happens to these kids, right? And so everything is pretty much a snowball, right? And African American people have been dealing with this type of stuff forever.
I'm just sitting here trying to contain my facial expressions and my body language because I'm angry.
Yes.
And I'm angry enough to do something about it, which is why I'm blessed to, one, have somebody like yourself on this podcast again, but also blessed to be able to work with young people on a daily basis and be able to share this information with them so that they have a better view into their futures so that they can understand issues like this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Voting.
Voting. And of course, we've spoken about voting before, right? We have a huge election that is coming up, the presidential election. And, we're not here to tell you who to vote for. We're here to tell you to learn, to listen to whatever is concerning you. Right. But I also want you all to know that the next person who is going to be in the White House is going to be a person that is going to appoint the next 2 to 4 Supreme Court justices of the United States. So whatever decision we make in November, it's going to be a lasting decision that is going to follow us for maybe 10 to 15, 20 years, who knows, down the line. So we just need to make sure that we are informed in our decision to vote. And we have to also remember that there are so many African-American people in history that fought for our right to be able to vote. So don't just sit on your hiney, and then when someone is elected that you didn't want to be elected, then you're starting to fight. When your benefits start getting cut, then you starting to fight and you want to worry about it, right? So make sure you are informed on whatever it is. If you're an independent person, like Oprah said, she was an independent, right? And she votes on issues. If you are that way, look at the issues in both candidates and decide what is going to work best for you.
Well said.
Thank you. And the last thing, of course, education. And we talked all about Carter G. Woodson, I think, at the last talk that we had, the last 15 minutes. And education is huge. We know that during the institution of slavery, it was kept away from us because it was a way for social mobility and being able to be self-sufficient. It was a means of hope and us dreaming and aspirations and all of these great things all together. Now, the education system currently has been failing African-American people. And again, as I said, it's a snowball effect of everything, right? Because if you think about where African-American people are housed, most of them are housed in inner cities. The inner cities are the schools where you have educational crisis, the failing of the education system, right? And so what we need to realize, or I think what we need to do, is try to have some type of reform in the education system altogether. We need to, the schools that are A+ schools, what about taking those teachers and moving them into the inner city schools and having them duplicate what they did over there? Why not cut the funding from those inner city schools because they are failing and bringing in more to the schools that have A+? Why don't we take those funding from the A+ school and invest it in the inner city schools and see what's going to happen? Instead of having prison pipelines, from school to prison pipelines, we need to have pipelines from schools to colleges for people in the inner cities. And so these are things that, we have struggled with. I think it's because it goes down to voting too, right? Even at the level of the school board, right? You have to make sure that you put the right people in power positions and that they listen to you and understand that there is a need to do better, right? So that's what I have about education.
Listen, it's real. It's real, Dr. Decuir. It is so real. You and I are both in education. You mentioned school boards. We are definitely seeing the impact here in Texas. Inner city schools being taken over. Houston Independent School District is in the news every single day. Here we are, the 4th largest city in the country with, I want to say, if not the largest, maybe the 2nd or 3rd largest independent school district in the country. And it is in utter chaos. And I had one of your colleagues on, Dr. Brian Turner, and he taught me this term, Kasieran Ingeta, and it means how are the children? Because the wellness of the children is a great indicator of how well the society is doing. Mm-hmm. All right, y'all, listen. That was the funkiest 15 minutes in Black history. We like to give it to you in bite-sized pieces. So look, what we just did is we gave you 5 issues that have been impacting the African-American community, past and present. Before we get out of here, Dr. Decuir, I do want to give you an opportunity to give us some good medicine. So prescribe something to our watchers and listeners that will be life-changing for them. It was life-changing for you, and it'll also be life-changing for them. So what do you have for good medicine?
I would say failure is success turned inside out. Don't let your failures stop you. Continue to grow and improve on any of those things. It doesn't matter if it all matters on how you get up, right? Just don't stay down. Get up, do something.
Get up, do something. Turn that failure inside out. Listening, y'all, if you are listening to the audio podcast or if you're watching on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. If you are only listening to the podcast, if you're listening on Apple, I want you to go to iTunes, give us that 5-star rating. Follow the Network with Michael Prejean on Instagram and Facebook, _network_podcast on Instagram, the Network with Michael Prejean on Facebook. Signing off, my name is Michael Prejean. That is my government name. For my homegirl, Wine Alley's finest, Dr. Sharlene Sinegal-Decuir. Until next time, y'all make love the culture.
Until next time.